Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're all about you and becoming an agricultural scientist. All right, big interview coming up. We're diving deep into these RoleCatcher guides so you can totally ace it. Hopefully kickstart that dream career, right?
It's amazing how RoleCatcher really gets down to the specifics for different jobs. I mean, that can make or break you, especially in a field like agricultural science.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
So first things first, what exactly are we talking about when we say agricultural scientist? What do they even do?
Well, they're the folks working to make agriculture better, basically. Improving how we do things, the products, all that. They could be researching ways to grow more crops, higher yields, or figuring out how to make plants that can resist diseases, or even finding better ways to manage livestock sustainably.
Yeah, sustainability, that's going to be huge in this field, right? I mean, with all the climate change stuff and trying to feed a growing population,
Yeah.
it's all over the news.
Absolutely. It's a big deal. We can't just produce more food. We got to do it in a way that doesn't wreck the planet at the same time.
Okay, so that's the big picture. Let's get into some of the stuff you actually need to know to get this job. The RoleCatcher guide says biology is like 77% important.
Makes sense, right? You got to have a solid understanding of plants and animals, the whole science behind them. That's the foundation.
And communication, obviously. I mean, that's important no matter what you do.
Oh, for sure. Being able to explain complex science stuff clearly, whether you're writing a research paper or talking to farmers, that's key.
Here's something that surprised me, though. Knowing about computers and electronics, I wouldn't have thought that was a big deal in agriculture.
It's all about the tech revolution in agriculture, really. Think precision farming, drones flying over fields, analyzing tons of data. It's changing the game.
Speaking of technology, let's talk about RoleCatcher's AI for a second and how it can help you get ready for this interview.
It's pretty cool. RoleCatcher can look at job descriptions and then use its AI to suggest, the best skills and experiences to highlight when you're answering questions.
So it takes the guesswork out of figuring out what the interviewer wants to hear.
Exactly. And it can even give you feedback on your answers, fine-tune them, to make the best possible impression.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've got an idea of what an agricultural scientist does, what you got to know. Now let's really get into this deep dive interview prep.
All right, so RoleCatcher has a ton of possible interview questions, but let's focus on a few that really get to the heart of why you're even doing this, your passion and motivation.
I like it. Let's start with a classic. What inspired you to pursue a career in agricultural science? I mean, everyone asks that.
That's your chance to really sell it, show your enthusiasm. Don't just give a list of reasons, tell a story.
What kind of story would really impress them?
Maybe it was something from your childhood, like on a farm, or maybe a really cool biology class that got you hooked, or even a documentary that made you think about the challenges of feeding everyone,
Something that shows that spark, that real connection to the field.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget to tailor your story to the job and company you're interviewing for. Do your research on them, their values, their mission, and then connect your passion to what they're doing.
And I bet RoleCatcher can help you figure out those values and work them into your answers.
Oh, definitely. All right, now let's say the interviewer follows up with, what area of agricultural science are you most passionate about and why?
Okay, getting more specific.
Yeah, now they want to see if you know your stuff, like the different specializations within the field, plant genetics, soil science, animal stuff. Be prepared to talk about what really interests you, with real enthusiasm.
So it's not just about having the right answer, but showing them you're into it.
That's it. All right, moving on to another one they often ask. How do you stay updated on the latest developments and technologies in agricultural science?
That's got to be about showing them you're always learning, always on top of things.
Exactly. Give specifics, Mention publications, conferences, professional organizations. Maybe you take online courses or follow experts on social media. Show them you're actively plugged in to how the field's changing.
I imagine RoleCatcher's AI can point you to some good resources for that, right?
Yeah.
Based on the job description, maybe.
Oh, yeah. It can even look at industry trends, like emerging tech that might be relevant to the job you want.
Cool. Okay, let's get a little more technical. What is your experience with crop rotation and soil management?
Now they're checking your practical knowledge, what you've actually done.
So how do you stand out on this one?
Share a real example, a project where you used these techniques and it worked. Talk about the challenges you hit, the choices you made, and the positive results.
And be ready for follow-up questions. They might ask about the newest trends in sustainable soil management or how you'd handle improving soil in their specific region.
Right. Those follow-up questions are where you show you can think on your feet, apply your knowledge to a real-world situation.
It seems like storytelling's a big deal here. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. Giving real examples, anecdotes, it makes your answer stick with them. More engaging, memorable, and convincing.
Okay, another one. How do you approach data analysis and interpretation in your work as an agricultural scientist? Got to use that analytical brain.
Absolutely crucial, this one. I mean, agricultural science, it's all about data, right? From field trials, lab experiments, even market trends.
So what's the secret to a killer answer here?
Explain how you do it, your process, but make it clear and simple. Even someone who isn't a scientist should get it. Mention specific software or tools you're good at, like statistical packages or programs that make those cool data visualizations.
And show them you can take that data and actually figure out what it means, draw conclusions and make recommendations they can use.
Exactly. They want to see that you're not just crunching numbers, but you can use them to solve problems and make smart decisions.
I bet RoleCatcher's AI can look at the job description and tell you which software or techniques to mention.
You got it. It can even look at your current skills and tell you what you might need to brush up on before the interview.
Okay, here's a question that's super relevant today. How do you balance the need for increased productivity with environmental sustainability in your work?
This is where you show them you get the challenges facing agriculture, the big picture.
Yeah, it's a hot topic, so they want to see you've thought about it, that you're well informed.
Right. Don't go to extremes here, just preach one side. Emphasize a holistic approach. How you consider both productivity and sustainability in your work, your decisions.
And be ready with some examples, right? Maybe you helped with a water conservation program or reduced the reliance on chemical fertilizers or maybe promoted biodiversity on a farm.
Exactly. Concrete examples always make your answer stronger. Shows you're not just talking, but you're actually doing it.
And I'm guessing RoleCatcher can help you find those specific sustainable practices that fit with the company's values.
You know it. Now, picture this. The interviewer asks, what specific sustainable practices do you know and how would you apply them here?
That's your chance to shine. Talk about things like cover cropping, crop rotation, integrated pest management, or maybe even precision agriculture,
Yeah.
Optimizing resources.
And be ready to explain how those practices would actually benefit the company, like real tangible stuff, increased yields, cutting costs, or maybe a smaller environmental footprint.
So showing them you get how to put these ideas into action.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk teamwork.
Because in agricultural science, you're rarely working alone.
Exactly. It's a collaborative field.
Yeah.
So get ready for a question like, how do you approach collaboration and teamwork in your work as an agricultural scientist?
What's a good answer here?
Don't just say you're a team player. Everyone says that. Give them a real example, a project where you worked with others successfully. Highlight what makes you valuable on a team, communication, listening, handling disagreements, even leadership if you've done that.
And if you've worked with different kinds of people, like farmers, researchers, or policymakers, mention that too.
Right on. Agricultural science often involves connecting scientific research with the real world, so showing them you can communicate with different groups is a big plus.
And be prepared for follow-ups like, tell me about a time you had to handle a challenge or conflict on a team, or how do you like to resolve disagreements and reach a consensus in a group?
Those kinds of questions are all about showing them you're self-aware, you can solve problems, and you learn from your experiences. Be honest and real in your answers.
Here's one that requires some big picture thinking. What are some of the biggest challenges facing modern agriculture today, and how do you think we can solve them?
That's where you show off your knowledge of what's happening in the industry, and your ability to think critically about solutions.
It's not just about pointing out problems, but offering real solutions based on what you know.
Think about things like climate change, resources running out, feeding everyone, the push for sustainable practices, pests, and diseases. Be ready to talk about those and offer some potential solutions based on your experience.
You can mention stuff like precision agriculture, drought-resistant crops, vertical farming, or even policy changes that make sustainable practices more appealing.
Right. Get specific. Show the interviewer you're really thinking about these things.
And RoleCatcher's AI can help you find relevant challenges and solutions that match the company's focus and what the job actually involves.
You got it. Now, get ready for this follow-up. What role do you see yourself playing in tackling these challenges? Be prepared to connect your skills and what you want to achieve with the bigger goal of creating a more sustainable and resilient food system.
So it's about showing your passion for this field and your commitment to making a real impact.
Exactly. Let's switch gears now and look at a question about working in different cultural contexts. Something like, what's your experience with international agricultural development, and how do you approach working with diverse cultures and stakeholders?
Yes, the global perspective.
Yeah.
Agriculture is a global issue, right? Challenges like climate change and food security, they don't stop at borders.
Right. They want to know if you can handle cultural differences and work well with people from all different backgrounds.
What if you haven't really worked internationally?
Honesty is the best policy. If you have worked on international projects, great. Describe them. Mention specific countries, regions, the types of projects you were involved in, and what you learned, good and bad.
But if your experience is more local, that's okay too, right?
Of course. In that case, focus on the skills you have that could transfer. Have you worked with researchers from other countries? Or on projects with farmers from different cultures? Even just traveling a lot and getting exposed to different perspectives can be valuable.
It's all about showing them you can work effectively in diverse environments.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher can actually help you tailor your answer to the specific company, like if they have a global presence or work in certain regions.
It's like having a personal coach to help you navigate the whole global agriculture scene.
Now, be ready for a potential follow-up question. Tell me about a time you had to deal with a cultural misunderstanding or conflict at work.
Ooh, that's a tricky one. How do you even start answering something like that?
It is tough, but it's also a chance to show them you're emotionally intelligent, you can handle conflict, and you can build relationships across cultures.
So how do you answer it well?
Be honest and think about what you learned. Explain what happened, the misunderstanding, how you dealt with it, and what you took away from the experience. Remember, they're looking for someone who can handle these sensitive situations with grace and diplomacy.
So being genuine and showing you're willing to learn from your mistakes, that's important here.
Absolutely. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a question that's all about pushing boundaries in the field. Something like, how do you approach innovation and experimentation in your work as an agricultural scientist?
Okay, so this one's all about being creative, willing to try new things, thinking outside the box, right?
Exactly. Don't just say, I'm innovative. Everybody says that. Give them real examples of projects where you tried new approaches or used new technologies.
Like maybe you experimented with a different irrigation system or found a more efficient way to manage livestock. Or maybe your research led to a brand new crop variety. Show, don't tell.
I love how RoleCatcher frames this one. They want you to talk about not just what you innovated, but how you did it. How do you come up with new ideas? How do you work with others? How do you decide if an idea is even worth pursuing?
So it's about having a process, a way of thinking, not just some random stroke of genius.
Precisely. Now, be ready for this. What emerging technologies in agriculture are you most excited about, and how do you see them shaping the future? Now you can really geek out and talk about what inspires you.
Gene editing, vertical farming, AI robots. Share your thoughts and show them you're not just knowledgeable about what's happening now, but you're excited about the future of agricultural science.
Let your enthusiasm shine through. And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI feedback can help you tailor your answers to highlight the innovations that are most relevant to that specific company or role.
So connecting your interests with what they're doing, basically.
Speaking of that, let's talk about a question that pops up a lot for research-heavy roles. Can you describe your research experience and how it aligns with our company's goals?
All right, now you really need to showcase your expertise and connect it to what they are doing.
Exactly. Start by giving them a summary of your main research areas and methods. What questions have you explored? What techniques are you good at? What were your big findings, your contributions?
And then make those connections. How does your research fit in with their current projects or what they want to do in the future?
Like if they're all about developing drought-resistant crops and your research is all about plant genetics and how plants deal with stress, highlight that.
So showing them that your skills and experience match up with their specific research needs.
Exactly. And be ready to talk about how your research could actually be used and what it could lead to. How could your work help solve real problems or contribute to the company's mission?
It's about showing them you're not just a researcher, you're a problem solver. Someone who can take scientific findings and make them useful in the real world.
Right on. And RoleCatcher can be a big help here. It can look at the company's research and suggest areas of expertise that you should emphasize.
Like having a research assistant who helps you tailor your message for the specific people you're talking to.
Exactly. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about a question that's all about leadership.
Leadership in agricultural science. Interesting.
Yep. Even if the job isn't specifically a leadership role, Interviewers like to see if you have the potential to take initiative, inspire people, and get things done. So be ready for a question like, tell me about a time you showed leadership skills at work.
What makes a good answer here?
Show them you can influence others, motivate people, and work towards a shared goal.
Think about specific times when you took charge, even if it wasn't a formal leadership position. Did you lead a research project, mentor someone newer to the field, organize a team event?
Explain the situation, what your role was, the challenges you faced, and the positive results you achieved.
And don't forget to point out the specific leadership qualities you demonstrated, like communication, delegation, problem solving, or decision making.
It's about showing that you can step up and lead even when things get tough.
And I bet RoleCatcher can help you figure out which leadership skills are most important for the job and suggest specific examples to use in your answers.
You bet. It's like having a leadership coach to help you present your best self to the interviewer.
Now, for a question that everyone dreads a little bit, what are your salary expectations?
Ah, yes, the salary question. It's a tricky one, but you got to be ready for it.
How would you suggest handling it?
Do your homework. Check out industry standards, salary surveys, resources like RoleCatcher to get an idea of what people usually make for similar jobs in your area.
And think about your own experience, qualifications, and what this specific job entails.
Right. Don't sell yourself short, but be realistic and flexible.
RoleCatcher's AI can be helpful here too, right? It can analyze salary data and give you an idea of what's competitive.
Exactly. Okay, so during the interview, don't throw out a specific number right away. Instead, try to shift the focus by saying you're really interested in the role and you want to learn more about their compensation package.
You could say something like, I'm super excited about this opportunity, and I'm sure my skills and experience are a good fit. I'd love to hear more about how compensation works for this role.
That keeps things open and lets you get more information before you commit to a number.
That's smart. It shows you're professional and you're interested in something that works for both of you.
Exactly. All right, wrapping up this section, remember, practice makes perfect. Take time to go over common questions, practice your answers, and tailor your approach to the specific company and role.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher is your friend. Use their resources to get insights into the industry, analyze job descriptions, craft great answers, and really refine your interview skills.
With preparation and the right tools, you'll be set to impress and land that dream job as an agricultural scientist.
Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back for the last part of our deep dive. We'll explore even more ways to help you stand out and navigate this exciting world of agricultural science.
Okay, so continuing our deep dive, let's look closer at something that's super important in agricultural science, but people don't always talk about it, risk management. Agriculture has all these built-in risks, unpredictable weather, markets going up and down, all that. It's something anyone who wants to be an agricultural scientist needs to understand.
You're right. I was just looking at a question in the RoleCatcher guide that's all about that. How do you approach risk management in your work as an agricultural scientist?
It's a question they ask to see if you're aware of the potential problems and if you can handle them. A good answer starts by recognizing all the different types of risks you find in agriculture.
Like what specifically?
Well, think about things like extreme weather, pests and diseases that can wipe out crops, markets that are constantly fluctuating, and even changes in regulations and policies. All of these can really impact agricultural operations.
Okay, so how should someone answer this question in an interview?
Don't just list off the risks. Explain how you actively manage risk. What tools or frameworks do you use? Do you use data analysis to spot potential problems before they happen?
Do you have any examples of those tools or frameworks?
Sure. Things like predictive modeling to forecast weather patterns, early detection systems for pests and diseases, or diversification strategies to reduce your exposure to market risks.
And I bet RoleCatcher could help here too, right? Their AI could suggest some relevant risk management approaches that fit the specific job.
You got it. It can also analyze industry trends and identify emerging risks that are specific to certain areas of agriculture.
And what about follow-up questions? What if they ask you for a specific example from your own experience?
Be ready with a good story. They might ask, tell me about a time you had to manage a serious risk in agriculture. What did you do, and what was the result?
So have a compelling story ready, one that shows you can solve problems, adapt, and think on your feet when things don't go as planned.
Exactly. Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about a question that assesses how well you can adapt to different cultures. What is your experience with international agricultural development, And how do you approach working with diverse cultures and stakeholders?
Ah, yes, the global perspective. It's getting more and more important in agricultural science as challenges like climate change and food security become global issues.
You're absolutely right. The interviewer wants to know if you can navigate cultural differences and work effectively with people from all kinds of backgrounds.
What if someone hasn't had any direct international experience?
Honesty is key. If you have worked on international projects, describe them. Talk about the specific countries or regions, the types of projects, and the challenges and rewards you experienced.
But if all your experience is local, that's okay too.
Right. Absolutely. In that case, focus on transferable skills. Have you collaborated with researchers from other countries, worked on projects that involved farmers from different cultures? Even extensive travel where you were exposed to different perspectives can be valuable.
It's all about showing you can work well in diverse settings.
Right. And don't forget, RoleCatcher can help you tailor your answer to the specific company, like if they work internationally or in certain regions of the world.
It's like having a personal coach to help you navigate the complexities of international agriculture.
Now, be prepared for a potential follow-up. Tell me about a time you had to deal with a cultural misunderstanding or conflict at work.
Ooh, that's a tough one. How do you even begin to answer a question like that?
It is a tough one, but it's also a chance to shine. The interviewer wants to see your emotional intelligence, your conflict resolution skills, and your ability to build relationships across cultures.
So what's the key to answering this well?
Be honest and reflective. Talk about the situation, what the misunderstanding was, how you handled it, and what you learned from the experience. Remember, they're looking for someone who can handle sensitive situations with diplomacy and tact.
It sounds like authenticity and a willingness to learn from your mistakes are really important here.
You got it. Now let's switch gears and talk about a question that explores your passion for pushing boundaries. How do you approach innovation and experimentation in your work as an agricultural scientist?
Okay, so this is all about showcasing your creativity, your willingness to try new things, your ability to think outside the box.
Exactly. Avoid generic responses like, I'm innovative. Everyone says that. Give them concrete examples of projects where you implemented new approaches or technologies.
Like maybe you experimented with a new irrigation system, or found a more efficient way to manage livestock, or maybe your research led to a whole new crop variety. Show, don't tell.
I love how RoleCatcher frames this. They want you to talk about not just what you innovated, but how you did it. How do you come up with new ideas? How do you collaborate with others? How do you assess whether an idea is even worth pursuing?
So it's about demonstrating a process, a mindset, not just some random flash of brilliance.
Precisely. And be ready for this follow-up. What emerging technologies in agriculture are you most excited about, and how do you see them shaping the future of the industry? This is your chance to really nerd out and talk about the stuff that gets you fired up.
Gene editing, vertical farming, artificial intelligence, robotics. Share your insights and show them you're not just knowledgeable about the present, but you're passionate about the future of agricultural science.
Let your enthusiasm shine through. And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI feedback can be really helpful in tailoring your answers to highlight innovations that are relevant to the specific company or role you're interviewing for.
It's all about aligning your interests with what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
Speaking of aligning with a company's vision, let's talk about a question that often comes up in interviews for research-focused roles. Can you describe your research experience and how it aligns with our company's goals?
All right, now you need to showcase your expertise and connect it to the specific opportunities they're offering.
Exactly. Start by summarizing your key research areas and the methods you use. What scientific questions have you investigated? What techniques are you proficient in? What were the key findings and contributions of your research?
And then connect the dots. How does your research experience align with the company's current projects or their future goals?
For instance, if the company is all about developing drought-resistant crops and your research focuses on plant genetics and stress tolerance, make sure you highlight that connection.
So it's about demonstrating that your skills and experience are a good fit for their specific research needs.
Right. And be prepared to talk about the potential applications and implications of your research. How could your work help solve real-world problems or advance the company's mission?
It's about showing you're not just a researcher, but a problem solver, someone who can translate scientific findings into real-world benefits.
You got it. And RoleCatcher can be a great resource here. It can analyze the company's research portfolio and suggest specific areas of expertise that you should highlight.
It's like having a research assistant helping you tailor your message to the right audience.
Exactly. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about a question that explores your leadership potential.
Leadership in agricultural science. Tell me more.
Yes. Even if the role isn't specifically a leadership position, interviewers often want to see if you have the potential to take initiative, inspire others, and drive projects forward. So be ready for a question like, tell me about a time you demonstrated leadership skills in a professional setting.
Okay, what makes for a strong answer to this type of question?
It's all about showcasing your ability to influence others, motivate teams, and achieve shared goals.
So think about specific situations where you took on a leadership role, even if it wasn't formal. Did you lead a research project, mentor a junior colleague, organize a team event?
Explain the situation, your role, the challenges you faced, and the positive outcomes you achieved.
And be sure to highlight the specific leadership qualities you demonstrated, such as communication, delegation, problem solving, or decision making.
It's all about showing that you have the potential to step up and lead, even in challenging situations.
And I'm sure RoleCatcher can help you identify the leadership skills that are most important for this job and suggest some specific examples to use in your answers.
Absolutely. It's like having a leadership coach helping you present your best self to the interviewer.
Now, let's talk about a question that can be a little bit awkward for some people. What are your salary expectations?
Oh, yes, the dreaded salary question. It's tricky, but it's important to be prepared.
So, how should people approach this question?
Do your research. Look at industry benchmarks, salary surveys, and resources like RoleCatcher to get a sense of the typical salary range for similar positions in your area.
And take into account your own experience, your qualifications, and the specific responsibilities of this role.
Right. Know your worth, but also be realistic and flexible.
I bet RoleCatcher's AI can be useful here too, right?
Yeah.
It can analyze salary data for comparable jobs and give you an idea of what's competitive.
You bet. Now, during the interview, avoid giving a specific number right away. Instead, try to redirect the question by expressing your strong interest in the role and your desire to learn more about their overall compensation package.
You could say something like, I'm incredibly excited about this opportunity, and I'm confident my skills and experience align with your needs. I'd love to learn more about the compensation structure for this role.
That approach keeps the conversation open and gives you a chance to gather more information before you commit to a specific number.
That's a really smart strategy. It shows you're professional and you're looking for an agreement that benefits both of you.
Exactly. All right, as we wrap up this section of our deep dive, remember that preparation is key. Take the time to review those common interview questions, practice your answers, and tailor your approach to the specific company and the role you're interviewing for.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher is your friend in this whole process. Use their resources to get insights into industry trends, analyze job descriptions, craft compelling answers, and polish those interview skills.
With preparation and the right tools, you'll be well equipped to make a great impression and land that dream job as an agricultural scientist.
Okay, let's take a deep breath and move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll discuss even more strategies to help you stand out from the crowd and make your mark in the exciting world of agricultural science. Okay, so picking up where we left off, let's tackle a question that really gets to the core of what an agricultural scientist does. Something like, can you walk me through a challenging research project you worked on and highlight the key takeaways?
Yeah, this is a classic one. It's what they call a behavioral interview question, you know. They use it to see how you solve problems, how you handle setbacks, if you can learn from experience.
So what kind of answer would impress them?
Pick a project that was actually tough, you know, something that really tested you and showed off your skills and how resilient you are. Briefly explain what the project was about, your role, and the specific challenges you ran into.
Like unexpected results, not enough resources, technical glitches.
Exactly. Talk about the obstacles, how you got past them, and the decisions you made along the way.
And don't forget to mention what you learned, right? What were the big takeaways? How did it change how you approach research? What skills did you gain or improve?
It's all about showing them that you can handle tough situations, think critically, and adjust your approach to reach those research goals.
And hey, RoleCatcher can even analyze your past projects and suggest which ones might be most relevant to the job you're going for.
Right. Absolutely. It's like having a personal research advisor helping you choose the best examples to highlight your skills. Pretty cool, huh?
Totally. Okay, moving on. Let's say they ask, imagine you're presenting your findings to a non-scientific audience, like farmers or policymakers. How would you make sure they understand the main points?
Yes. This one's all about communication, how you explain complex science stuff to people who might not be scientists.
Yeah, bridging the gap between the lab and the real world.
Right. First off, acknowledge that clear communication is super important, especially when you're dealing with a non-scientific audience. Avoid using jargon or technical terms they might not understand.
Okay, so how do you make complex science easier to grasp?
You got to get creative. Use analogies, metaphors, real-world examples that people can relate to. Visual aids can be super helpful too, like graphs, charts, and diagrams to show the data and trends. And always focus on the so what? Why should this audience even care about your research? How could it impact them? What are the potential benefits?
It's about making the science relevant to their lives and what they're interested in.
Exactly. And, RoleCatcher can help you tailor your message here, too. It can give you insights into the audience's level of scientific understanding and what their main concerns are.
So it's like having your own communications coach to help you create a really clear and engaging presentation.
You got it. Now, let's talk about that question that always pops up near the end of an interview. Do you have any questions for me?
This is your chance to shine, right? Show them you're curious, engaged, and genuinely interested in the role and the company.
Don't waste this opportunity by asking something you could easily find on Google, Prepare some thoughtful questions that show you've done your homework and you really want to learn more about the job and the company.
What are some good questions you could ask?
You could ask about the company culture, how they approach research and development, or the specific challenges and opportunities that come with the role. You could even ask the interviewer about their own experience at the company.
So show them you've done your research, you're thinking critically, and you're really invested in this opportunity.
Right. And guess what? RoleCatcher's AI can actually analyze the company's website and recent news to suggest some relevant questions you could ask.
It's like having a research assistant gathering intel for you before the interview. Pretty handy.
Totally. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of agricultural science. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the skills and knowledge you need to interview prep strategies, and even some tips on networking and showcasing what you can do.
And we've seen how RoleCatcher can be a game changer in this process, giving you personalized insights and guidance every step of the way. I mean, who wouldn't want that kind of advantage?
It's been awesome sharing this information with you. Remember, agriculture has a bright future, and with your passion, skills, and a little bit of prep, you can really make a difference.
So go out there, embrace the challenge, be innovative, and dive into the amazing world of agricultural science. We're rooting for you every step of the way.
Until next time, happy diving.